Hello and welcome to this hopefully short tutorial on how to use the Mechanical Masher add-on I have created. This is for the pre-alpha version 0.2, I believe. So things may be different if you're watching this tutorial for later versions of it, and it may just look different anyway, because I'm crazy like that. So, first thing you want to do, install and enable the add-on. So to do that, press File, User Preferences. I'll pop up this window over here. Then you want to go to Add-ons and find the add-on and enable it if it's in this list. If it's not in this list, which it wouldn't be because you haven't told it where it is yet. To install the add-on, you click on the Install from File button here. Then you just got to locate the file wherever you have it, probably in your download folder or something like that. And it should appear in the list. It should be the first one and only one in the list. If it's not, you can find it under Animation. And there it is there. So as I said, this is version 0.2, and yeah, so enable that. You will also want to enable a couple of other add-ons, which I will later make automatically enabled when you enable this one or something, somehow. The other add-ons you want is the Pi menu add-on, which you can find by typing in Pi and clicking on All if you're not already. And there you go, there's two add-on things. I'm not sure which one you need, probably just the official one, but just enable them all anyway. I would also recommend just enabling all the add-ons because I'm me and that's what I do. So, yeah, the way I find to be easiest for doing that is by clicking on Disabled and just spam ticking the tick boxes. You can just tick the top one and it'll all bring up the list, so you can just spam tick in that one location and enable them all. Once they're all enabled, you can press Save User Preferences down here, and that will mean you'll never have to enable the add-ons ever again. Yes, I should also say if you're ever updating the Mechanical Masher add-on, wherever it's gone, you will want to remove this, like untick the box, remove it, and then reinstall from the file again. You may also need to close and reopen Blender if it was already enabled. I'm not sure. I'm just putting it out there just in case. It's a bit weird. Yes, so that's that. So, once you've got that working, the first thing you want to do is create a proxy mesh. Oh, wait, I should also mention this add-on uses a shortcut key, which is the wobbly key, I call it. I think it's called the accent grave or something like that. It's the key that's under the escape, above the tab, and next to the 1 in that corner of your keyboard. By default, that showed all of the layers, so if you press that, all of these layers would get selected down here, and press it again would just go back to whatever it was before you pressed it. But now it opens up this Pi menu here. Pi menu's got a whole lot of options in it, possibly. I don't know how it looks with you guys whenever people happen to be seeing this. But for me right now, because I keep changing it around all the time for one thing, I have just all the options up here, although none of them work apart from the ones with the names. The auto gear connections, disconnect, and generate gear ratio. The CS means coming soon, and PF is a pro feature. And I'll get into that stuff in a moment. But yeah, the first thing, well actually no, before then, if you ever want to change that shortcut, you can find the shortcut under the User Preferences, and then Input, then 3D View, and Object Mode, and it should be the top on the list called Mechanical Masher. So you could just click up here and change that to whatever you want it to be. Okay, so now, first thing you want to do is create a proxy mesh. Proxy mesh sort of follow rules. I'm just going to make mine by using a circle. You could use whatever shape you want, preferably as long as it's round. In this version of it, it doesn't actually have to be round as long as the width is the right, but whatever. Let's just go with the circle, because this is a proxy mesh. What a proxy mesh is let me just find an image. Hang on a second. Okay, here. So a proxy mesh is sort of this thing. Without the actual gear here, the proxy mesh is like all of these circles around the place. From these circles, you can find out all the rest of the information about the gear, other than the number of teeth. But that can just be figured out otherwise. Anyway, so the proxy meshes we're making are these outer circles here. So you can see the outer circle of this gear and the outer circle of this gear both connect together at this point here. So when two gears are connected together, these two circles are touching. Anything else that isn't touching, like intersecting or like some distance away from each other, will mean the gears don't particularly work as good as they should do. Although within this I have a bit of a buffer zone, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So, there's a few rules you got to follow when making the proxy meshes. One of them is the center of mass or the origin point or whatever has to be at the top of this thing. What I mean by that, well, you also got to know well, how. Sorry, very bad at making tutorials lately. So you got the circle. The circle. So this is the size of our gear. I'm just calling this like a size 1 gear because this is just the default size. But worry more about that in a moment. So gears need depth, just like gears in real life. So you can just extrude that down however far you want, doesn't particularly matter, as long as it actually has some depth. The depth has to be in the Z-axis. It can't be in the X or a Y. So a gear will always be in this orientation sort of thing. The program is not 3D yet. It only sort of works in this 2.5D world. So a gear like this would work fine, but if it was tilted in any other way, it won't quite work because it doesn't understand angles that much. But hopefully that will be fixed in later versions of it. Anyway, so this is pretty much the minimum you need for a proxy mesh. It's just it. You just need to know the size of it and the depth of it. From this, you can figure out all the rest of the information that is needed. But I'm just going to make mine look fancy anyway. Also, I should mention, if this is your first time using pie menus, these things are pie menus, which you'll notice are very annoying when you haven't used them before. But when you get used to them, they are really, really awesome. Because like, I can easily switch between object and edit mode, which you'd be saying, well, that was easy anyway, just press tab. But then I could also go to sculpt mode or whichever other mode just as easily, when I wouldn't even have a clue what those shortcuts were before. So yeah, that's brought up by pressing tab. Z toggles like the shading modes, so wireframe mode, bounding box, solid, and all that sort of stuff. Where before Z just toggled between wireframe and solid mode, I think. I did used to know a few other shortcut keys for other modes, but I can't remember them anymore. Anyway, there's all sorts of stuff around the place which will annoy you at first, because you'll press the button, like you press tab, you're like, okay, now I'm in edit mode, then you go to swipe away to do something, and you will go into like weight paint mode or something accidentally. Because when you open up a pie menu, if you press and move it quickly to the side, it'll like automatically switch to whichever one you're moving towards. Yeah. Anyway, so that's pretty cool. So let's make this proxy mesh look a bit cleaner and fancier in a way. This is the sort of shape that I like to use for no particular reason. As I said, this has no bearing at all into how gears will work. This is just what they look like. Well, the proxy meshes look like. This isn't even a gear, this is a proxy mesh. What a proxy mesh does is it holds all of the animation information. I seem to have created a double. Oops. Well, yeah. What have I done? It'll do. Yeah, so this holds the animation information. So when you're animating things, all of that stuff will happen to the proxy meshes. So if you want an actual gear to be displayed, all you need to do is parent an actual gear to the top of it, and there you go. Later on versions will have things to do that automatically for you, so just one button press and it's all gears and stuff, and it'll probably just hide the proxy meshes or something like that. They'll always be there, but yeah, anyway, that just means you can easily switch out the rendering meshes or whatever of the gears on the fly whenever you want. You can also like offset the rotation and stuff like that, and you don't have to worry about messing with a whole lot of other stuff which would mess with many, many things. Because if you know making gears is really, really difficult without this add-on. I have spent a long time trying to do that. Also, this is ambient occlusion. If you don't know about this thing, it's pretty awesome. So if I was looking at this from the top view, you can't see the whole inset thingy that's going on here. But if I toggle ambient occlusion, look at that. You can clearly see that it's sunken down, like on the inside part. So that's just a really, really awesome feature here. You do other stuff too, but whatever. I'm not going to get into that stuff. Trying to make this quick. So, there is a proxy mesh. Let's make 2 of them. So here are 2 proxy meshes. Let's connect them together. So let's make these 2 as if they're gears connecting together. Way you do that is just simply by selecting the things you want to connect together, pressing the shortcut key to pop up this thing, which is the wobbly key under escape above the tab next to the 1, and go auto gear connections. Bam. So now these 2 gears are not connected together. Every time I try to make a tutorial, this stuff happens. Why aren't they connected together? Okay, so I just had a bit of a problem with the add-on, nothing to worry about, it's all fixed now. It happens every time I try to record a tutorial. Something always goes wrong. Anyway, so now these two things are connected together as they would be first try normally. And yeah, so that's pretty cool. I can rotate any one of these gears and it will rotate all of the other gears that are connected together in the chain. So I could create a third one and connect those two together, and there we go. All three of them connect together. There is a bit of a glitch which just happened then. I got ways I can fix this, but I just rotated this gear around, then unrotated it, but the other two didn't update to that. That happens every now and again, don't worry about it. You can instantly fix it if you've noticed it happening by just rotating the same gear that happens. Doesn't matter if you select anything else, as long as you don't move or rotate or change any other gear in any other way, like I just did then. Oh wait, no, that doesn't matter. Okay, so as long as you don't rotate any of the other gears, you can just select whichever gear you were rotating when the error popped up, and just rotate it again, and that will pop them all back into place again. It's pretty random how that happens. It is just random. As I said, I got ways to fix it. I just got to get around to doing it because it's going to mean a whole recoding of a whole section of the thing, which I got to do anyway for a whole lot of extra features. But whatever. Anyway, with the auto gear connections, I could also select multiple gears, like all three of them, and then connect, and they will all connect together. Connections have some stuff that you can do with them, so let's just worry about two gears. Like, these two gears, they rotate as they should. Also, I find that sometimes holding down Alt-R to clear rotations, if you just hold that button down for a moment, they'll all glitch out for a little bit, and then they'll reset back to their original positions, which is pretty cool. I only discovered that a while ago. Cool feature, which I didn't even code. Anyway, so yeah, these two gears rotate as they should, as you expect, but if I was to move this gear away and then rotate again, this one doesn't rotate. So they will only rotate if they are within a certain range of each other like this. That range is one of these squares, a roundabout. It rounds slightly different ways, so anything greater than one of these squares is guaranteed to not rotate the other one. Anything less, and they will rotate. So there's a little bit of a give there, because, you know, it's really hard to line up those things if you were going, like, up here. Like, you don't want to spend forever trying to line those things up. And it wouldn't affect gears that much in real life anyway, though it would, so preferably you don't want that to happen. So ways I do it to rotate a gear around like that is you select select the gear, and then the gear, then the one you want to rotate around, and then you change the, this thing to active element, which will mean this gear now is what it'll be rotating around. You can rotate it around like that. It's a bit glitchy the way it looks with this thing, but it fixes itself, so it does actually work. That'll all be fixed when I fix that other rotation thing as well. Yes, so next thing. Gears have depth, as I've said. Depth matters, so if I was to rotate these gears, they rotate just fine, but if I was to move them down like that, now they don't rotate anymore, because they're not connected in any sort of way, so they have to be touching along the outsides, other than that small buffer zone, for them to rotate. Although there are a few glitches around the place, such as if these two gears were different sizes, that causes a problem. So if this gear was scaled on the Z like that, this would rotate fine like how it is. But if I was to move it up about here, I'm not sure if that worked, that works fine. But if I was to move it down here, I believe this should still work even though they're not connected. They do. That's just because of how it figures out where and how they're connected. It doesn't really know how big one or the other gear is, it just knows that the two gears combined is this big, so it has to be connecting to at least half that height with the offset of, like, anyway, a whole lot of stuff. But don't worry about that. So if you encounter that, just don't worry about it. Well, you know how to fix it, I suppose. Unless it's a necessary thing, in which case, if I still haven't fixed it by the time you've got this add-on, and you require it for some reason, and I'm still on this version, or whatever, this tutorial is still relevant, let me know and I'll make it more of a priority to fix that. So, moving on. Other things. This add-on also keeps ratios. So if I was to size this up by 2, although if I did that, the bottom part's going to be offset, so just a little trick to get around that. So instead of just sizing up by 2, hold down Shift and Z, and now it'll be sizing in everything but the z-axis, which is pretty cool. So once again, I'm sizing, I press Shift and Z, and now it's sizing on everything but the z-axis. And I just press and 2, now it's 2 times as big. So if I make those things next to each other, and I rotate this one, you'll notice that it keeps ratios. So since this one is twice as big as this one, that means this one has to spin around twice for that one to spin around once, or once for this one to go twice. So 1, 2, or 1, 2, and it's all the way around. So that's a pretty cool thing. You can have it any size you want, it doesn't matter, it'll always figure it out. Yes. But when things are bigger like they are, let me just move this one down a bit so you can see a little easier. You can connect gears together differently than just on the outside of each other. You can also have it on the inside, which follows the same buffer zone sort of thing. It just has it on the inside instead of the outside. So now if I was to rotate this, you'll see it rotates around the inside. And this gear is rotating the opposite direction that it was before relative to this gear. So it actually is rotating the correct way around. To show that off a bit better, I can rotate these gears to be like that. And put them somewhat together, although you can't really see it because it's not underneath. But yeah, they do actually keep the ratios, and they are rotating at exactly the right speed, as they should be. There is also one other connection mode, which is if you have it directly in the center with the exact same X and Y locations. So as long as the X and Y locations are exactly the same, this one will connect together. So this is as if there was a rod connecting them both together directly, or if they were actually the same gear that just had two different, like they were stacked together or something. So it ignores ratios, as you see, when one rotation of one is one rotation of the other. So that's another cool thing. But it has to be exactly the same X and Y rotation. There's no buffer for that. Okay. So that's everything you need to know about connecting and proxy meshes, I guess. So next thing is, well, disconnecting. Disconnecting disconnects everything that is connected to that one gear. I should also mention that there's so much to talk about. So I've had so much trouble making this tutorial. It's been taking so long. So when you use the auto gear connection, that thing connects gears only the gears that would be connected if they were already a connection, if that makes any sense. So if I was to move this gear away, then connect these two gears, and bring it back, it wouldn't be connected. That's because it was outside of that buffer zone. So as long as it's within the buffer zone, or in the exact same location, or on the inside within the buffer zone, then it will connect the two gears together. It won't just connect them everything selected. That way it just saves it a whole lot of memory, it makes the whole program a whole lot faster. Although later versions of this may have alternate versions of connecting. I'll probably have a little menu that appears down here and you can just toggle the different versions. But that's a later on feature, which isn't there at the moment. And I think there was one other thing about connection. Oh yeah, disconnecting. Disconnecting doesn't follow the same rules of that. It just disconnects everything. So if this and this gear were connected and you told this one, like you just selected this, and then went disconnect, it would disconnect this gear from every single other gear that it could or is connected to. So it would disconnect from this one and any other one. So if I selected two gears and press disconnect, it won't disconnect them from each other, it will disconnect both of them from everything. So just keep that in mind. Okay, ratios. So ratios are a fun thing, pretty cool fun thing, although really hard to see on the screen, so let me just move it away a bit. I'm used to the ratio button being in a different place. Anyway, so yes, ratio. Ratio is in and ratio is out. So this is a 1-to-1. If I just change that to make it so you can see them, that would mean one rotation of one means one rotation of the other. So a 1-to-2 means one rotation of the input one would mean two rotations of the output, and vice versa. So that's pretty cool. And you can just scale all of these to whichever numbers you want. So if you were, say, building a clock, you would probably have something along the lines of a 1-to-60. 60. And that would look like this. So this is a 1-to-6. That's the wrong way around, isn't it? See, it's supposed to be 60-to-1. Just delete all these. There. And that was also a 16. So a 6t to 1 would mean 60 seconds goes into 1 minute, or 60 minutes into 1 hour, and then 12 hours into, or 24 hours into a day-night cycle, but anyway. Also to note, when you do the ratio thing, you can just click outside of this box and it will look like everything's working fine. But if you try to create a new ratio, it will suddenly remove everything that was here, just like it does when you change this number. So if you want to apply the ratio, you have to press OK. I'm still trying to figure out how to make that do something else if you click out of the box, like a cancel function. But I haven't found out how to do that yet, so it'll be coming soon in a new version. So press OK, and there we go. So that is a 60 to 1. So if I rotated this N1 60 times, then this one would go around once. And yep, as you see, everything's all connected together automatically. I didn't have to select everything, then auto-connect. It's also like offset the height. It does add this one extra gear here. Let me turn off the grid. Grid's annoying. How do I turn off the grid again? Display, grid. You do have this one extra gear up here. So this was the original one that I used to generate the ratio, and it just has this one extra one up here. I can code it so this one, everything would automatically just be down, one lower, and this thing doesn't exist, because it doesn't really need to. These two things sort of cancel each other out. But then, yeah, you might want this for some sort of a feature. I could list all of the stuff, but it'll take a while, and I'm trying to make this short. So, yeah, everything is all connected together as it should do. Other things to note. Ratios follow prime numbers if that happens to be important to you or not. It could be something you just didn't know. It could be handy for you for some reason. I don't know what you're trying to make with this add-on, but I found that pretty cool. Like, there's many different ways you can do ratios like this. Like, that's another question you might have. Like, why don't I just have one gear and then a gear that's 60 times bigger? That would be a 60 to 1 in 2 gears. Like, why don't I just do it 2 gears? How do I change the gears to be more or less of them? How do I rearrange the order of them? The answer is you can't. It is just impossible. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. It's not mathematically correct or whatever. So the way I figured out the ratios work is they follow prime numbers. So the prime numbers are 0 apparently, then a 1 apparently, and then a 2, a 3, a 5, a 7, and it just continues on. And what a prime number is it's a number that cannot be divided by any other number other than itself or something or other. So a 3 cannot be divided by 2, but it can be divided by 1. But that's a weird thing. Maybe 1 doesn't count, I'm not sure. Yeah, and then a 5 can't be divided by 2 or 3. And then 1's 1, it goes into everything. So, yeah, the next number would be 7. 7 can't go into any of the other ones. So, you could change the size of this by connecting these two together. So this is basically a 4 here. This is twice the size to a twice the size. So you could just do a 4 here, so a 1 to 4, and then this one's, I guess, a 5. And 7. You can actually see by here, it's half of that. So that's a 5, that's a 1, that's a 3, that's a 2, and that's a 2. So these two 2s could become a 4, and anyway. But the reason why I do it the smallest possible way like this is because it is smaller. This is a more compact version of creating ratios for gears. It will fit into a smaller place, although it's less efficient in other terms. Like, everything has always got, like, pros and cons. Anyway, I could ramble on about this for hours. I probably shouldn't. Let's just move on. Hang on, is there anything actually else to do in this tutorial? I think that's everything. I don't know. I'll explain the rest of the stuff, and then I can come back to this and do like a whole rambling session, I guess. So, other information. Check if the stream is working. I had like a whole lot of problems trying to record this thing. Like boxes, black boxes were all over the place from my streaming stuff, and all sorts of stuff. Anyway. Yeah, so extra information about this add-on is, if you donate while I am developing this version of it, there's 3 different versions of this add-on which I plan on releasing. One is the version that you should be watching with this tutorial, which is the pre-alpha version. That version is everything up until the alpha version, which I don't know why I'm naming it these things, they're just random names, they don't actually mean anything. But yeah, the pre-alpha is everything that's going into the alpha version before the alpha version is complete. and then the alpha version is the completed version of the pre-alpha, and then there'll be a pro version, so I guess that could technically be 3 different versions. Pro version will have a heap of extra features. It's pretty much like the entire thing redesigned 100 times better, and really, really awesome. But the pro version will not be free. The alpha version will become free at a later time. It won't be the moment I've completed it. I'll probably have it, so you have to buy it for a while, and then I'll release it as free later on. But the pro version will always cost money, no matter what. Probably. I don't know, I might release it for free one day. But, yeah. If you donate while I'm developing the pre-alpha version before the alpha version is released, you will get the pre-alpha version as a donation reward. Doesn't matter how much you donate, though the more the merrier, as always. Just to say, $11 is how much a Subway sandwich costs, which I would very much like, just if you want a minimum amount to donate. But anyway, so yeah, also on top of the pre-alpha, you will also get the pro version for free if you donate within that time range. Who knows how long that will be? It could be weeks, days, months, possibly even never actually happen, because, you know, there's a lot of stuff that has to go into this thing, especially the pro version. Anyway, so features that the free version will have, if you want these other icons explained, or you could just leave now and they'll be forever a secret to you until they're released, is what's already here. You've got the auto gear connections, disconnecting, generate gear ratio. Then you'll also have belts and chains, which is this icon over here. So just the same as you can connect the gears together, you can do the same with belts and chains. So you could select multiple gears that are on the same axis. It's like I could select this gear and put a belt around them. You just select them and then press the belt thing. Anyway, that will probably add a curve that goes around the 2 gears, and that curve will have an offset for animation stuff. So you could use some modifiers like the array modifier, so you could make, say, like a chain link. Then you can put an array modifier on that chain link and a curve deform, I believe it is. I don't know, it's been a while since I've done it. I know you can do it, but I'm pretty sure it's a curve and an array. And then the curve has some sort of an offset, I think. Nope, I don't know, I can't remember. But something around some place has some sort of an offset thing. That thing will be driven by the gear. So as I rotate a gear that the belt is connected to, that would be offsetting the animation thing, which would mean the links of your chain, which is set by an array in a form, would be rotating around the gears at the correct speed. Yeah. Other things that are going to be happening is the mesh generator, which is going to be generating meshes from the proxy meshes. So I could literally just select all of these meshes and then press that button, and it would generate gears. Although the gears that I'll be using will just be the default Blender gears, which if you didn't, I might have a whole heap of options here which you've never seen before, and this is because I enable all my add-ons. I don't actually know what is and isn't an add-on anymore, so I don't know. People say you should enable them all, but I've never had any problems with doing it. And it's cool to see all the extra features, which I don't even know what's extra anymore. But anyway, gears. So this is what a default Blender gear looks like. So I'm not actually sure what this add-on is called. I'll be doing a whole lot of research into that stuff later as I combine it into my add-on, which will actually be the next feature that's added to this pre-alpha probably. But oh god. Just realized what time it is. How did it go? So, yeah, this is a gear. You've got a whole lot of settings and stuff, which are normally down there, but because I added the gear... Yeah, there you go. You've got a whole lot of settings, so you can check Crash Blender. I have absolutely no clue what that was for. Probably something to do with my add-on. I don't know. Blender's been a bit unstable lately, so just ignore that. If it ever happens to you and you figure out some sort of a pattern with it, let me know, and then I could fix it from my add-on. Always let me know about that stuff, any bugs or anything. This is just the pre-release anyway. But I'm going to keep rambling. So, yeah, you'll be able to select all your gears, press the button, and it'll generate a mesh. You'll have minimum settings you can put in for things, but it'll just look like the basic meshes which you just saw. Nothing fancy. In the Pro version, though, I will have a way more complicated version of that, which I will code entirely myself, which will have actual proper gears, which will probably be built out of curves or something, I'm not sure. Anyway, they'll look real nice, they'll have like connecting internal supports and all sorts of fun stuff, so I can do all of that. All of that will be in the Pro version. It'll be way, way more efficient, and then you can have it easily 3D printed and stuff like that. So, let me just open up this thing so I can quickly go through the rest of the stuff, because I'm really going to go. Oh, this thing's going to open. This is a program called Frida. I had some guy buy this for me, so I'm trying to fit it into whatever things to show it all off. But it's really cool, like, management program. You can do all sorts of stuff with it, and you can even use online stuff with it, which is pretty cool. Hard to explain, sounds confusing, but pretty cool program. I'm not sure how much it costs, though, or if it's worth the price, because it could be super, super expensive. But anyway, pre-alpha release. It's pretty much done for the beginning of that. The alpha release, belts and chains, possibly rods, probably not, because I think that requires physics stuff. Physics stuff's going to be a later on thing, which is the Pro version. The Pro version is going to have physics. So it's going to have conservation of energy, as I got up there, so that means to rotate a gear, you require inputting a certain amount of energy, which has to overcome friction of certain things, which it'll all just be in there, possibly settings around the place for the setting scale and stuff like that. I doubt I'm going to have things like wind resistance though, but anyway. Then it's also going to have like momentum and things, so you can build stuff like flywheels. Once you get a gear rotating, it's going to have potential energy of its own, depending on its mass and velocity and or whatever. And yeah, so you could create something like a flywheel, big heavy fat wheel, and it spins. The faster it spins, the harder it is to stop it from spinning, or the longer it takes. There'll also be motors, so for the physics stuff to work, you can't rotate it by hand as I've been doing with everything else. So I suppose you could, but I'm not sure if I can code that at the moment, but that could be a feature later on. Anyway, so there's 3 different types of motors. There's constant, fluctuating, and limited. So a constant motor would be something like an electrical one. It just applies constant force until it reaches its max speed. Fluctuating would be something like steam-powered. So steam is a fluctuating force. It doesn't have a constant pressure behind it. Not directly, anyway. But you can build mechanical setups to make it more direct, such as centrifugal governors, which are another thing. You'll be able to do centrifugal things. If you know what that is. Centrifugal governor is a pretty cool thing. Google it. Everyone probably knows what it is, just doesn't know the name. It's a little thing with ball bearings, spins around, the ball bearings fly up, which does stuff, and then slows things down or something, so they fall back down, which makes things go faster. Anyway. And then limited is something like a spring. Springs can be wound up or, like, released, but only for a certain amount of time, and as they wind down, the amount of energy they output becomes less and less, so it's limited. So that's another cool thing. You could also just have a spring with no energy, then it would wind up, then release its energy when the amount of built-up energy overcomes a certain amount of the stuff that's trying to push it. So you could do stuff like the mechanical stuff of a watch. You will also have pendulums, so that's another thing, the release mechanisms of springs and stuff like that. It's how watch mechanics works, but I won't get into that. Pistons, because pistons require physics to be able to know if they can push. Otherwise, I've got to build a whole system for priorities, so I doubt... Well, I'm not going to do any of that. It's all going to be physics-based. Gravity for pendulums, 3D. Hopefully, it'll be 3D by then. That might be like a much later version of the Pro version, because that stuff's really, really complicated. Mesh generation, as I said, better mesh generation. It's also going to have render materials and also real-world materials. So I'll have basic materials for stuff like iron or copper or gold and all that sort of stuff, and I'll have whole photorealistic rendering stuff, because that stuff's fun to make, and I may as well add it into this thing. But it also requires it for the real-world information. When you build a gear and you prepare it to the proxy mesh, that gear will be a thing. It will have information about it, which the proxy meshes will go from, unless you don't have one, in which case they'll just use default information. So within Blender, you can find out how much volume a mesh has, as long as it's a non-manifold shape. In which case, I'll have some sort of an error message pop up, or it'll highlight a gear in a certain color or something to show you that this isn't right. But yeah, it can calculate the volume of gear. So you can build a gear, like a flywheel, you just have a solid steel wheel. Like steel property, it's just solid, probably teeth around the outsides or something, I don't know. It could just be a disc, it doesn't matter. And then it could calculate all of the real-world properties from that. So this way, well, that way you could simulate real-world stuff within Blender, within this add-on, before actually creating it in the real world. So one of the materials might be ABS plastic with a certain fill ratio or something like that. That way, if you have a 3D printer, you can input all these settings into all of your gears. You can have a spring and use spring information, which I don't actually know yet. I've got to research all of that. So you can actually input real-world information into these things. And then you can 3D print this stuff, put it all together, and if all is well, it should look pretty much exactly the same as it does on the computer. Around about. The longer you leave it running, obviously, the more imperfections there would be in the real world compared to the computer, like different like air resistance and stuff like that, or imperfections with the 3D printing. Anyway, all of that sort of fun stuff. Yeah, there'll also be lots of other things like stats and stuff. You'll be able to select a gear, see like charts and graphs and stuff like that of like energy inputs and potential energies over time and all of that sort of fun stuff. But that's all in the pro features. That stuff is far, far away from being done, although much closer than I think. I was actually starting on these pro features, like all the physics stuff. I've got most of that worked out, and it's actually somewhat inbuilt into the pre-alpha, but it doesn't work yet. Just like the starting of it. Anyway, so that's pretty much everything. Yeah. Hopefully this tutorial was helpful. I've just realized I'm probably going to have to repeat all of this stuff at the end of all my tutorials, so that sucks. I guess these tutorials will also serve as update videos of some sort. Maybe I can cut and paste stuff that's originally working. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully, thanks for donating. And yeah, let me know if you have any ideas of stuff for me to add to it. I've already got like a whole series of them over here, like something that shows the path of the gears, like how they're all connected together with lines rather than the actual gears themselves, so you can quickly and easily see the connections. And I don't know, I was thinking like circuit things, exploded views, so you can see exactly how many of each different type of gear there is and how many to print, and then you could like print that out on a piece of paper and cut it out of wood or something like that, and you'd know 5 of this gear, 6 of that gear, or whatever. Anyway, many, many ideas, which is this extra things list here, I think. And I got other things actually spread all around the place. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully I shall have the next version out soon, if I don't already by the time this video comes out, because I've sort of editing things. Yes, anyway, I'm gonna go. Bye.